Welcome, friends, to another amazing episode of Elevate and Thrive. This is your host, Barry Napier, here with my co-host, Dr. Angela Yeagley.
What's up?
And today we're going to get into a topic that a lot of people are really interested in right now, and that's semaglutide. But we're not just talking about semaglutide. We're also talking about what do you do when you want to get off semaglutide or stop semaglutide, and how do you retain all of the great weight loss benefits that you've received from going on this great medication?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, right now we should probably say, you've already said it, semaglutide is an amazing weight loss medication that is or initially was used for, or is used for diabetics. And they found that the weight loss was so amazing that, now it's approved for weight specifically. And it's quite incredible, suppresses appetite, really reduces cravings, puts you, kind of moves you into a ketosis. So you're more in fat burning mode and slows down the emptying of your stomach. So what you eat stays there longer. So amazing benefits of semaglutide. So yeah, then,
And also reduces cravings.
Yeah.
Is another very interesting. They're doing a lot of studies right now with the GLP-1s, the semaglutide, that is around cravings, addiction, anxiety, obsession, that whole kind of thing. Because what they're finding is that also has this really incredible impact on the brain function, and that kind of dopamine high, that desire for something, makes it much easier to walk past the pile of cookies or the sweets, or maybe it's the French fries or the potato chips or the Doritos, or it's the, whatever the thing is for you that is your weak spot. For me personally, it's French fries.
Yeah.
And chips. Like if I open a bag of chips, I will eat a lot of the chips. I'm not going to say I'll eat the entire bag. I will eat a tremendous amount of chips.
My weakness is cake. That's why I can't have it around. Like there's no, like if my daughter has a birthday and then there's like half a cake, I will eat it 1 inch by 1 inch, like over 2 days. Because I tell myself,
eat the whole thing.
I'll eat the whole thing because I'll say, I'm only having this much cake. And then I'll go back 20 minutes later. I am only having this inch worth of cake.
Yeah.
So I fool myself
Totally.
eating most of the cake.
Yeah.
So yeah, it cannot exist. And
Do you just throw it away, or do you give it away?
I give it away. Yeah. Or I don't, and then I eat it.
Yeah. Well, there's Doritos in my house. They will be eaten by me at some point, even though I get them for the kids, full unquote. Yeah, they're definitely going to be in my stomach. Cake I'm good with, but I do like frosting, but I can stop myself. But used to have a real thing with more sweets. I mean, when I was a kid, when I'd walk home from school, I would eat like half a box of Nutty Buddy bars. I would stuff and get like a whole. They don't make Nutty Buddy bars anymore. But so what is a Nutty Buddy bar? If anybody doesn't know, it's like a chocolate and peanut butter covered like wafer, like stacks of like wafer, crunchy, delicious, sweet wafer wrapped in chocolate with like peanut butter in the middle. Nutty Buddy bars. They were amazing. But I would eat like half a box of Nutty Buddy. It was probably, I don't know, 1,500 calories plus of just pure fat and sugar. So point being, like, all of us have these things, in our life that semaglutide can be a great tool that can help you move into a state where you don't have any kind of, if it's a food addiction or craving or desire, kind of reduce that, but also just with not overeating, helping you feel like you're full.
Yes. And I would say it's incredible at doing that. I actually had somebody recently tell me that they loved the drug. They said it's the best thing that was ever made. Those are like real words from a patient.
Yeah, and I think semaglutide, Govi, Ozempic, all the different kind of versions. There's more versions coming of different. Everybody's kind of jumping on this. I think can be a really powerful tool. But like any tool, just like a great diet or a great fitness program, it can produce great results. However, if you take it away, right? Or like, let's say you're doing, back to use the diet analogy, let's say you're doing keto diet and you're not eating any carbs and you lose 80 pounds over the course of a year and a half. And then you start to eat carbs again. And over the next year and a half, you gain 100 pounds because you changed the thing that was fundamentally the tool that allowed you to lose the weight without changing some of the internal structures within your brain, within your skills, your abilities, your routines, like how you think about food, how you think about yourself, the things you do and don't do, all this stuff. None of it really changed. It was just set aside. And that same thing can happen with semaglutide. You can use the semaglutide and lose a lot of weight. People lose a lot of weight, and some people can gain all that weight back and more when they stop using semaglutide over a period of time.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of wanted to mention, ironically, like how incredible it is, because it really, people do start, they eat less, they have way less craving. However, you're absolutely right. Like during that time, there is some behavior change there, right? Because your brain goes, I don't really care about those chips anymore, right? Like I really don't care about them. Like I could take them or leave them, and I actually don't really want to eat that because those cravings are so reduced, right? But so there is a little bit of behavior change during that time.
Full dependent behavior.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So then you're right. Like what happens then once that semaglutide is gone? That thing that is controlling those cravings and is making you essentially, you're choosing to, but you're eating less because you don't really care about the food that much. Yes, that's gone. Then, yes, what happens then?
Right.
So we're having a whole, right now, people are coming to kind of the, successful or starting to wrap up their successful, ending of like their weight loss journey with the semaglutide. And now, and really, as we talked about, really the beginning of the semaglutide is probably the time to really start diving into developing and honing in those other skills.
Absolutely. The ideal path is to use semaglutide as a way for you to more quickly, more easily, more readily start to create behavior change inside of yourself, right? Because it helps stabilize your mood, your hunger, and it allows you to start making choices that if you make them consciously, intentionally, like if you start to actually build new habits, new skills, new routines while you're on semaglutide, it makes the whole process much, much easier and faster. It also will speed up your weight loss over just using semaglutide.
Yeah.
Because really when it comes down to it, when it comes down to creating long-term, I'm talking about like you're done with diets, you're done with that kind of stuff. Like you achieve a state with your body. Listen, the body's always fluctuating, right? So like you achieve a state where you're kind of fluctuating within a small window of variation. So what do I mean by that? Prior to the pandemic, for over 15 years, my body weight stayed in a very narrow range, right around, not ever more than 10 pounds. It was, and that was not how I was born, by the way, or like that was a created intentional skill set acquisition, right? So you got to think about every result you have in your life, like how you look, how you feel, money in your bank account, the joy in your heart, the love in your life. Literally everything is a skill that can be learned and acquired. Okay. Now I know everybody thinks, oh, I know somebody who's blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Yes. There are some natural people out there who naturally have gifting in different areas. They might be genetically gifted and it's the skinny person and they can eat whatever, and they never get it. That was not me. I was very overweight kid because I stuff like eating a box of Nutty Buddy bars on the way home. But I was able to learn a process that allowed me to change the skills that I had around food, the skills that I had around movement, right? And deepen my understanding about how the body works and how you get overweight, how you get fat, but also how you gain muscle, how you get lean, right? How you have energy, how you have strength, right? Mobility, all this stuff. They're all skills. You can learn it, but you need a process because at the end of the day, semaglutide can create this incredible momentum for you and start to give you results. And at the same time, if you take it away, your success is dependent upon it. So what we need to do is while you're on semaglutide is we need to transform you from the inside out, right? We need to learn more skills around food, around movement, and around how to eat in a way that will allow you to take those results and have it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Nicely done.
As am I.
Yeah.
My TED Talk. Pumped up about it.
So, okay. So really starting out then, okay, somebody is starting semaglutide or you're at the end, you're wrapping it up. Time to work on mindset, right? Like making a decision about how you see yourself to be, right? And there's something that I thought was really great, like thinking in your own mind about how you think about yourself. You're like, I am, like you said, like when you were in middle school, you're like, I'm a fat kid. That was your story, right? So you have to change the story. You're like, no, I am fit. Like I am a person who cares about how they look. I am a person who is, maintains their weight. It's like changing your own internal story to yourself. I think that's kind of that mindset is the beginning part of it, right?
Absolutely. There is a body, body. I'm all about body positivity, and I'm all about self-love, and also about being healthy in your own body, right? So like, there's, I think, a large and growing dialogue around, body positivity and accepting people for who they are. And 100%, I think that I love that message. I love it. I think it's great. I personally also think it's important to look at your health too, right? So sometimes when you're going after a weight loss or a body compositional change, it's not so much even about the look as it might be about the long-term impact to our body of carrying a lot of extra body fat. It's very, very bad for you.
That is so true. And I completely agree with you. I absolutely, no matter where you are in your kind of health journey, you always should love yourself. I mean, that's awesome. It's number one. However, as you said, like, there is loving yourself enough also to make the healthy choices. They're going to put you into the place where you can feel good long term, right? Especially like for yourself, for your kids, right? To be around and not be struggling with all of these diseases of aging and obesity, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And that self-love and that self kind of evaluation and that ability to be self-reflective, that's a skill, right? So that's one of the first things we have to learn how to start to do that and start to frame ourselves in a positive way and start to be willing to make those, investments in ourself and in growing our self-image, how we look at ourselves, how we conceptualize ourselves to encompass these new healthy lifestyle behavior changes that we want to lock in. Because from there, we can start to look at, okay, what are you doing from a movement standpoint and what are you doing from a food standpoint? Because those are two of the biggest levers that we have. There's other stuff too. There's hydration, there's water, there's rest, recovery, sleep. All of it's important, but really it comes down to what you believe is possible. What do you want? Where you want to become? And then we can start to look at, okay, great. What's the process that we can go through to create a version of yourself that's sustainable for the long term, that you proactively or interactively build and learn along the way to give you that healthy output and that version of yourself that you're striving for.
Yeah. And so starting with food, say, right? Like, we know, obviously, one thing that comes up is that portions, many times people recognize as they're on semaglutide, they're like, wow, my portions
I was eating too much, right?
Yeah.
That's what people realize. I was eating too much. Like, now that I'm on semaglutide, I was eating all this food, and sometimes I was eating past the point. I was not eating out of hunger then. I was just eating out of reflex or habit. And that's a thing that semaglutide oftentimes big aha people have.
Yeah.
I was overeating. I didn't think I was overeating, but I've been overeating for like my whole life.
Right.
Very easy in America to overeat.
Oh, so easy. So, food is so available, right? And big is America.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And totally. And I mean, so many of us grew up. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and it was just heaping portions in unlimited portions and eat more, kid, it's like all family
You're
dinners.
healthy.
Yeah,
You're healthy.
Yeah, healthy grown kid, you need to eat more. So you don't ever, like, for many people, they don't learn actually what is hungry, what is actual hunger, because they're never in a state where they're ever that far away from food to know what real hunger is, and to understand how do you say eat to 80% full, which is a style of intuitive eating that can help you maintain a healthy body weight. Semaglutide essentially installs eat to a 70 or 80% full type of habit. The thing is, you can build that actual habit while you're on semaglutide, or even if you're not using semaglutide, you can actually build that habit. And so then when that tool is removed, you still operate from that habitual place because you've created that habit intentionally.
So, and maybe one of those ways to do that is really being present with your food, recognizing what is on your plate, portion sizes, right?
I mean, weighing and measuring food. If for some period of time, for a small period of time, sometimes for other people, it just becomes their way of how they do food at home, is having some way to weigh and measure food. Now, there's stuff like scales, there's stuff like measuring cups, And there's also stuff like visual assessments, utilizing, various methodologies. All of those can be effective at creating some kind of portion sizing so that you are intentionally eating the right amount of food for your body type and your activity level and your health goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about sometimes that weighing and measuring doesn't have to be always forever, right? I mean, unless you're doing something
unless you just get into it. But yeah, you don't have, it's not for everybody, but it's one way.
It can be a way though to go, okay, well, I'm supposed to have like a cup or 2 cups of vegetables with this thing. What does that really look like? You measure it out and then go, oh, okay, now visually I'm starting to get an idea of what this should look like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another concept with food is understanding the concept of macronutrients. So your food, we think about food, everybody knows the idea of calories, which is this overall energy of a food. But within that, different, food is made up of 3 primary building blocks: protein, carbs, and fat. Protein, carbs, and fat. And there's, high quality and low quality, there's organic and free range and all that kind of stuff. Bottom line, without getting into the quality conversation, there's protein, which is, you can think of as a building block. And then there's carbs and fat, which are essentially energy sources. Now, they do other stuff, but they're basically energy sources. And one key thing that you have to learn is how to get enough protein for your body type and your goals, and how to effectively manage your carbohydrate and fat intake. Now, the 4th macro for macronutrients is alcohol. And that's another one that people oftentimes think, drinking alcohol makes you fat. Well, alcohol actually, like, physiologically cannot be converted to fat. Like, alcohol essentially is its own fuel source, right? But when you are taking in alcohol, it's gonna, all the other energy that you're taking in usually, right? That stuff is the stuff that turns to fat. So yes, alcohol is a factor to weight loss and your goals, but you gotta learn this macro concept of what your food is, because not all food is created equal. And 1,000 calories of Nutty Buddy bars is not the same as 1,000 calories of steak and potatoes.
Right. And one thing that we've talked about is that something that's really common is that protein deficiency. And this was something that, even though it's like basically have a doctorate, that is nutrition based, medical nutrition, essentially, or primary care with nutrition, lots of training in that area. And this is a concept of really driving protein and having protein be first, because, it helps to burn calories. It's something we call thermogenic, and increasing the amount of protein. I guess the recommendation depends on it's like 0.7 to 1 for an average person per pound of body weight.
Lean mass. Yeah. Not to get too technical on it, but yeah, it's figuring out for the particular person, for their bodies. I keep bringing this up: body type, because everybody's body is different, and different bodies need different macros, right? And handle it differently, right? So but yes, protein, every study that has studied this and has linked high protein diet is the diet that is linked to the longest lasting your weight loss and highest improvement to your body composition, and also to living longer, because you protect your muscle mass, right? So decreased loss of muscle mass, one of the biggest causes of all-cause mortality, because if you can't move, you die. And if you're weak, stuff breaks, and then you die. When you're older. Not now, not right now.
Die.
Yeah, but yeah. That's it's the live forever diet. But why do you think vampires drink, blood? It's the protein. But seriously, protein. So it's figuring out protein, and then it's figuring out what kind of carbs and fat you need to achieve your goals, live your life, feel your best, and what your body can handle.
And one thing, what I was trying to say in all of that about training and nutrition is that, you can be getting a lot of nutrients, but your ratio, is wrong. Yeah. And you can even be, you're like, I do nothing but vegetables. But again, your ratios could be very...
Yeah, you could be totally vegan, ultra organic, super clean, and be very unhealthy, actually. Yeah. So from a body composition standpoint.
That, and basically through nutrients, surprisingly enough. So whenever I do, I do a lot of in-depth testing. And whenever there is any extreme of diet, usually we're going to
Totally. Yeah, totally. So the low protein, high carbs, high fat, that's what happens to most people unless they're very, very intentional and go through a process like I'm describing where you intentionally learn how to eat more protein and the right proteins for you and healthy proteins. That is the weight gain formula, low protein, high carbs. And that's what pretty much everybody eats.
Yeah.
Unless you've specifically gone after this or you've reprogrammed yourself or learned how to eat in a way that's not like that. So that food thing is a big part of it. And we can go on and on about food, but that's a one key thing that it's a skill to learn how to eat, what to eat, how to prep it, how to cook it, how to do so in a way that's not super oppressive and time consuming and that you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it. And that's why so many of these extreme diets and these extreme methodologies, they just do not last against the inevitability of your life, like the long grind of your life. Like you're just going to go back to these unless you make it a habit. Then it just becomes the new you, becomes the new normal. So food, we got to figure it out. The other piece of figuring it out, of course, is movement.
Right. I mean, it's, can someone maintain their weight just from diet alone? I guess they could. However, one statistic about women is that women will lose starting like in their late 20s, crazy, 1% of their muscle mass a year. So when you think about that, by the time you reach, 50, I mean, that's 20%. That's huge, right? Like, and so really, there is something called skinny fat, right? So, and yes, unfortunately, I probably at times could fit in that kind of working my way out of that, and building muscle and really have been sold in the weight training sphere and having a great time with it. But movement overall, I mean, whenever I see, so I've taken women, I think are probably a more extreme example because and harder, what I found just in my practice, it's harder to move women from a weight perspective than it is men. And I think, really it's because men have muscles and they have a lot of testosterone compared to us, right? Which, testosterone is it's a burner, right?
Yeah.
Like, and those muscles are calories, it's anabolic, yeah. And those muscles burn calories. So women, we have less of that. So, I mean, the techniques I think are very similar between men and women and how you long-term maintain your weight and look good, feel good about yourself and be healthy. However, I think that, so when I am working with women over time and I have them on some sort of diet, right? Some style of diet, whether it's keto or they've done HCG or they've done, Whole30, they've lost a bunch of weight. What I've seen over the years, this is like every time the women who are going to maintain that weight loss always are doing some form of intentional like lifestyle diet approach. And again, lifestyle, right? Not as like, oh, I'm going to loop into this other diet thing. Not that significant, like just baseline change of their diet and exercising every time they're doing both of those things. I have not seen, probably again, men are a little different, right? Because of that underlying muscle, but I think it's true for them too, or can be, right? If you're not moving, you are not going to maintain your weight.
Absolutely. It's food first. Yeah, it's food first and exercise. Exercise is the second piece of the puzzle. 100%. And when you look at exercise, there's different types of exercise that you need to be thinking about. And again, learn how to move more. You learn the skill and the habit of how to move weight to do resistance training, right? So resistance training for many people is a missing component in their life. They might be doing walk. They might hit their 5,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 steps a day, which is great. Maybe they're doing some running or biking. Maybe they have a Peloton at home, which I'm a huge, huge fan of the Peloton ecosystem. I love it. Love them all. They're so good. They are. It's the best. It's the number one thing I say. You get Peloton, but then also like go join like Industrious or a gym as well and do both, because you want cardio for so many reasons, for weight loss, body composition, also just cardiovascular health. Like there's a bazillion healthy reasons why you want to move. And then you want to introduce some intensity to that movement. Like you want to sweat and you want your heart rate to get accelerated, right? And you want to train your body how to go further, farther, faster, all that. But then you need to pick up some weights. You need to pick some heavy shit up and need to move some weight intentionally because that will then create muscle growth, burn more calories, and also changes the way your body looks, right? So if you have a look that you want, like you want to look a certain way, you want your clothes to fit better, it's not just about losing body fat. It's also about gaining some muscle.
It is. I'm sold. Like I definitely over time done things like, back in the 90s, it was aerobics, where I was going to aerobic, and those are great, right? Definitely have been a runner. I think backpacking can be like that because you're carrying a lot of heavy stuff, right? So it definitely can push muscle,
All great.
Yeah,
all great.
But in the last year, I have joined Industrious, and it has been, which is a CrossFit gym, amazing trainers, really, really good at making sure you stay safe and, lift right. And it is probably it's been one of the best things.
Totally. Yeah. You take something like an Industrious and then you start to make some food changes. And if your person also, you're like using something like a semaglutide to speed things up, within the course of a year, you could experience radical transformation. The key is when you pull away a tool like a semaglutide, regardless if you do Industrious or whatever. I know a lot of people who do something like Industrious or CrossFit. I used to be in that space hardcore, and there would be a ton of people who worked out all the time, and they would say stuff like, "Man, I just want to like look like better than I look. I want to be. I know I'm like strong and I'm working out all the time, but I just don't feel like it shows up in how my clothes fit, blah blah blah, in the mirror, etc., etc." So like, if you do have a body goal like that, you have to figure some of these other skills out. And semaglutide, again, like we said, can help, but fundamentally, we have to figure out the food piece. We have to figure out that movement piece, and then we have to get the mindset right too, and recognize these are all skills, learned behaviors by skills. Habit is learned behavior. You can learn new habits, learn new skills, and when you learn and encode those, you have them for life.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I love like framing it. It's like it's not magic, right? It's attainable, right?
Totally attainable.
Like an attainable goal, right? Or like you
can learn it.
Yeah.
You can learn it. You can learn it. Definitely requires having guide and instruction. A system really can help. And that's one of the things that we're actually working on here, is bringing all of these things together in a program for people who are on semaglutide or who have been on it or who want to go on it, and people who have no interest in semaglutide, but they're very interested in making these internal changes and learning these skills, these habits that we've talked a lot about on different shows and different videos that we put out. We're bringing that all together in a system for people, and we're excited to talk more about it as it comes together. But there is a process that you can go through and learn that will teach you how to think, what to do, that then will allow you to have these other outputs you want, the results you want in your life when it comes to how you feel about yourself, how you look at yourself, your self-love, increasing your self-worth, all of that, and then also changing your actual body. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So we're going to have kind of a tiered approach and give people a lot of tools, like how to implement exactly what we're talking about. So all the details, everything you need to kind of either make it happen yourself or to work with us, to make those, to help you, right, learn those skills. Everything is better when you have a guide who knows the tools, the path, who's there to help you. I mean, Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan, and that helped him a lot when I came to learn how to use a lightsaber. It's just a dangerous tool. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about that. Think about the disaster it would have been had he had no training. Yeah. Yeah. Don't just think about. This is one of the big problems I have with the very latest Star Wars movies. Okay, how did what's her face? How did she learn how to? You don't just learn how to be like a Jedi, a sword fight. Well, she picked it up. Yeah, she's so. See, that is not right. I know it's not how it goes, Keeble. All right. So anyways, keep your eyes peeled for that. We're really excited for it. Lots more information to come. But thanks for being here on the podcast with us, and good luck on. Want to make sure that you have a path and a process that you can use if this is something that you want to be put. Love to work with you too. Thanks for joining us. Catch you on the next show.